Hello, this is Dr. Hanaa Assil, and this is a video on transport in plants. This is the biology of combined science, but it could also apply to the other biology courses of the IGCSE. So let's take a look at what we mean by transport in plants. Remember that plants take up water from the soil into their roots, and then the water has to travel up through the stem to the leaves, and then actually it goes out of the leaves. So how does water move up the plant? This is through the xylem. So the xylem vessels are tubes that go through the stem. They transport the water and dissolved salts from the root to the leaves. So the water goes up the xylem in one direction, from root to leaves. And the xylem actually has thick walls which have something called lignin. So they are very thick and very stiff. So they help to support the plant. So when a tree is standing upright to a very high height, then this is due to the presence of the xylem supporting the plant. Now, when the leaves take the water and carbon dioxide from the air and they make glucose, by which process? Of course, by photosynthesis. Now, they make glucose. Now, we need to send this sugar and amino acids that we make from the glucose joining with the nitrates. So the leaves make sugar in the form of glucose, and they use that to make amino acids in order to make proteins. Now we want to send all of this to the rest of the plant so that they can use it. Of course, they use the sugar for respiration and the amino acids to make proteins for new cells. How are we going to transport it from the leaves to the other parts of the plant? First of all, the sugar is transported in the form of sucrose, not glucose. So sucrose is less soluble, so it will not be lost easily, but it is still soluble and can go through the phloem. So we're going to transport the sugar in the form of sucrose, and we're going to transport the amino acids that were made in the leaves to other parts of the plant. That means that all of this can go up through the phloem to the buds and the flowers at the top of the plant, or it needs to go down to the roots. All of these cells need the sugar and the amino acids. So the substances transported through the phloem actually go both up and down. But in the xylem, the water and salts go in only one direction, from the root to the leaves. Are we okay? Now you need to know the position of the xylem and the phloem in the root and in the stem and in the leaves, because it is different positions in each of them. So can you see the root? The root is the diagram on the left. Where is the xylem and where is the phloem? Can you identify that? The xylem is that part in the middle, in the root, and the phloems are parts on the side of that central part of the root. Now, if we look at the stem, where is the xylem and where is the phloem? Now, we have these in what we call vascular bundles around the stem, going round and round. The parts that are outside are called phloem, and the parts inside are called xylem. Can you see that? So in both of them, the xylem is the one in the middle, but in the root, it is in the central middle of it, exactly in the center. In the xylem, they're going round and round. In the stem, the xylem is inside and the phloem is outside. Please be familiar with which one is xylem and which one is phloem. Okay, then we said the water will go up to the leaves, but when it goes to the leaves, it does something called transpiration. And you should know that transpiration is the loss of water vapor from the leaves. So the water is lost from the leaves in the form of water vapor. Now, how does this happen? It happens by evaporation of the water at the surface of the mesophyll cells followed by loss of water through the stomata. All of these are parts in a leaf. So let us take a look at the parts in the leaf. First of all, you should be familiar with the parts of the leaf. Whether we're talking about transpiration or we're talking about photosynthesis, we need to know the parts of the leaf. So you should know that the leaf is covered from outside with a waxy cuticle on top. This waxy layer called cuticle prevents loss of water vapor from the surface so that the plant does not dry out. Then the next layer is a layer of thin transparent cells. These are called the upper epidermis. And then we have the layer of palisade mesophyll cells, which are cylindrical and they have a lot of chloroplast. The next layer is the spongy mesophyll cells, and the spongy mesophyll cells have a lot of air space between them. Now, where is the xylem and where is the phloem in the leaf? Remember, if we draw the leaf like this, the xylem is the one on top and the phloem is the one below. So the xylem is above the phloem in the leaf. The xylem is bringing the water. Now the water will go from cell to cell until it reaches the spongy mesophyll cells and it evaporates from the surface of the mesophyll cells. That means it goes into the airspace in the form of water vapor. And this water vapor then diffuses out through the hole called the stomata. Can you see the hole? The hole in the middle there is called the stomata. One is called stoma, many is called stomata, and the water vapor diffuses out of the stomata. Remember that the stomata are surrounded by gourd cells. So the cells around that hole are called gourd cells, and the hole in the middle is called the stomata. And the stomata and gourd cells are in the lower epidermis of the leaf. Are we following? Okay, there are some experiments that we could do to demonstrate that a plant does transpiration. Remember, we said that transpiration is loss of water vapor from the leaf. So I can get a leafy plant, cover it with a glass jar, and surround the pot that has soil and water with a cellophane bag that will not allow the water to escape from the soil. So if any water goes out, then it should go out through the leaves. Now, how do I know that the plant has done transpiration? Either I weigh the plant from at the beginning and at the end, or when water vapor comes out, it will form water droplets inside the glass jar. So you'll find that inside the glass jar, there are water droplets. And you should remember that the test for water is if I add anhydrous copper sulfate to these droplets, it changes from white to blue. Now, we can do a control for this experiment. You understand the meaning of a control? A control means repeating the experiment without the substance or the factor that is being tested. And if nothing happens, then we are sure. For example, I am saying that the water vapor will come out through the leaves. So I repeat the experiment again without leaves, without plant, without leaves. So of course, nothing should happen. So either the mass of the soil at the beginning and the end will be the same, or there will be no water droplets inside the glass jar. So this is called the control because this shows me that the water vapor that comes out is coming out from the leaf, not from any other factor. Okay, another experiment to show that water goes up the plant, for example, through xylem. So I can put this leafy stem into colored water, leave it for a few hours, and then I can see at the end that first of all, the leaves, the veins in the leaves will take the color of the water. And if I cut through the stem, through the cross section, I will find that the xylem in the stem has the color of the colored water it was put in. So this shows that water goes up a plant. Another experiment that we could talk about is something to determine where is the stomata, or to determine that water vapor comes out of the stomata. You should know that usually in the leaves, the stomata are present on the lower part of the leaf. So I can put a cobalt chloride paper on the surface, on this side and on the other side of the leaf. And you should know that cobalt chloride is also a test for water. Remember, another test for water is anhydrous cobalt chloride changes from blue to pink. So I will take the time or measure the time taken for the cobalt chloride paper to change from blue to pink. I will find that the one that was put on the lower side of the leaf will turn faster, because this is where we have stomata and this is where the water vapor comes out. Okay, what are the factors that affect transpiration? What would make transpiration faster or slower? For example, temperature. Remember, if I increase the temperature, the rate of transpiration will increase. Do you remember what's transpiration again? Transpiration is the loss of water vapor from the leaves. So, the higher the temperature, the faster the water vapor will diffuse out, the faster the water will evaporate from the mesophyll cells, so we will have faster transpiration. What about if we're increasing light intensity? Remember that when light intensity increases, the stomata need to open in order to provide the plant with carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. So when there is more light intensity, the stomata are open. And of course, if the stomata are open, then more of the water vapor can diffuse out of the leaf. So higher light intensity increases the rate of transpiration. What else? Air currents. Now, if it is a windy day, then the rate of transpiration will increase, because we need to maintain the concentration gradient. Do you remember what's diffusion? It's down the concentration gradient, so I need inside the leaf to have more water vapor than outside. So if the currents, air currents or the wind remove the water vapor as it comes out, then more and more water vapor will diffuse out. So the transpiration will be fast. Now, the only factor that lowers the rate of transpiration is humidity. Do you know what's humidity? Humidity is the amount of water vapor in the air. So if I have high humidity, that means I have a lot of water vapor in the air. So that means there will be less difference in concentration inside and outside the leaf. So less water vapor will diffuse out. So if it is high humidity, that means more water outside, water vapor outside, so less transpiration. So the more humidity, the less the rate of transpiration. Now, in order to measure all of these factors, we can use something called a potometer. So this is a potometer in which we put a leaf. Do you see the potometer? Can you see the air bubble? Well, if the water vapor goes out of the leaf, that means that the plant will pull more of the water into it, and that means the air bubble will move faster. If the air bubble is not moving fast, that means the rate of transpiration is less, so it is taking up water at a slower rate. Okay, let's take a look at some questions. In transpiration, most of the water evaporates at the surface of which leaf? Remember, we said if this is the layers of the leaf, where do we have evaporation of the water? It's from the surface of the mesophyll cells, because these are the cells that are next to the air space. The diagram shows a transverse section through a plant root. In which tissue is water transported from the root to the leaves? You know that water is transported through what? Through the xylem. So basically, it's asking you which of these is the xylem. That is the one labeled 1. So my answer is B. Which statement explains why the rate of transpiration changes on a hot, dry day? Remember, we said if it is hot, high temperature, what will happen? We will have increase in evaporation. if we have dry day, we will have increase in diffusion. So if I have a hot, dry day, we have increase in evaporation of water from the mesophyll cells, not decrease in diffusion. So if we're talking about diffusion, you'll actually have more diffusion on a dry day. So all my choices say decrease in diffusion, that's wrong. Decrease in evaporation, that's wrong. So the only correct choice is increase in evaporation. What will give the lowest rate of transpiration? What would make the rate of transpiration low? High temperature? No, we said high temperature will increase the rate. High humidity? Yes. High rate of movement? No. So my answer is high humidity. This is the one that will give the lowest rate of transpiration. Are we following? The graph shows the uptake of water by root hair cells over many hours during a day. What could have caused the change in the rate of uptake at T? Now, what's happening at T? The rate of uptake is starting to decrease. So why do you think the rate of uptake is decreasing? That means that the rate of transpiration is decreasing. Which of these will cause rate of transpiration to decrease? Well, decrease in temperature would cause the rate of transpiration to decrease. But decrease in humidity, no, more water vapor will come out, and increase in light intensity and increase in temperature will cause more water vapor to come out. So the only thing that will cause the rate of water uptake to decrease is a decrease in temperature. Which statement describes transpiration? We said, what do we mean by transpiration? Transpiration is evaporation of water from the leaf mesophyll cells. That is transpiration. A tree has lost most of its leaves. How does this affect the rate at which water is taken up by the trees? Well, if we lose most of its leaves, then it cannot have more transpiration. So it will have less transpiration, and that means less water uptake. So, but we're going to say our choices would be water uptake decreases, not increases, or remains the same, or stops. It will decrease, but it will not stop if we have lost most of the leaves. The graph shows rate of water loss. What could cause the change in the rate of water loss between X and Y? Again, the rate of water loss is decreasing, less transpiration. So which of these would make less transpiration? Again, the air becomes cooler. So less temperature, less transpiration. The table shows how humidity may affect the rate of diffusion of water vapor from a plant to the surrounding air. Which row will result in the highest rate of transpiration? So if I want more transpiration, do I want high humidity or low humidity? No, I want low humidity. We said if I have low humidity, that means there is less water vapor in the air. That means more of the water vapor will diffuse out. So I need low humidity for higher rate of transpiration. What do I need with respect to diffusion gradient? Do I want the diffusion gradient to be high or low? I want it to be high. If there is less water vapor outside than inside, then more of the water vapor will diffuse. The diagram shows a plant in a controlled environment. The list gives 3 ways in which environment can be altered. Which changes will cause an increase in the rate of transpiration? So let's take them one by one. Humidity increases? No, that would cause decrease. Light intensity increases? Yes, the stomata will open, more water vapor comes out. Temperature increases? Yes, more temperature, higher temperature means the molecules will have more kinetic energy and evaporate faster and diffuse out faster. So my answer is D. Were you able to answer all of this? The diagram shows the transverse sections through different parts of a plant. So we have through the leaf and through the stem and through the root. Which tissues transport water? So basically, which of these are xylem? Remember, in the leaf, we said, where is the xylem? The xylem is the one on top, so Q. In the stem, where is the xylem? The one inside, so that's S. In the root, where is the xylem? The one inside, so that is U. So my answer is D. The diagram shows a plant in a container of water. The layer of oil stops the water in the container evaporating. The initial mass of the container and contents is 296. After 2 hours, the mass of the container and contents is 292. That means how much water evaporated in the 2 hours? 296 minus 292, that's 4 grams. So 4 grams of water evaporated in 2 hours. So what is the rate of transpiration per hour? He's looking for per hour. So 4 evaporated in 2 hours. So for each hour, we lost 2 grams of water. The diagram shows a green plant. Most of the plant is enclosed in a black plastic bag. Only one part is exposed to the light and can photosynthesize. How is the sugar produced by the exposed part transported to the rest of the plant? So we have a leaf that is exposed to light. It did photosynthesis, so it made sugar. We make the sugar into sucrose, and we need to transport it to the rest of the plant. Now, remember that the sugar is transported to the rest of the plant in phloem. Now, in phloem, we said we go downwards only, or we go upwards and downwards. Remember that we said in the phloem, we go upwards and down. Which graph shows how atmospheric humidity affects the rate of transpiration of a green plant? We said humidity. If the humidity increases, what happens to the rate? It decreases. So it is that graph in C, not any of the others. It simply decreases with increase in humidity. The mesophyll cells and stomata of the leaf are involved in transpiration. Describe the process of transpiration. Use the terms mesophyll cells and stomata in your answer. We said, what is definition of transpiration? You should remember, transpiration is loss of water vapor from plant leaves. Now, how does this happen? By evaporation of water at the surface of the mesophyll cells, followed by loss of water vapor through the stomata. Okay? Complete the sentences below using words or phrases from the list. So he says, in the plant, water travels upwards in the, we said water travels in xylem. Dissolved sugar travels in what? Phloem. And moves how? Upwards and downwards. Remember, in the phloem, the sugar and amino acids go up and down. Evaporation of water from the surfaces of the mesophyll cells is called transpiration. Are you okay with all of this? Okay. Thank you. This was basics of transport in plants, and this is for IGCSE biology combined science. Thank you for listening.